bringing you the latest news from Lubbock High Athletics. This is the Westerner Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the high school fan zone on a Tuesday night. We are slipping into the Westerner fan zone. We got our normal guest, Mr. Juan Rodriguez, but I'm going to let him introduce his special guest. And to the far left there, if you've been a Lubbock High or a Lubbock football fan for a while, you probably recognize that guy. And I invited him in because, I don't know, Juan Rod, if I've told you this, there's one quarterback in the last, I would say, at least 30 years that beat Monterey in back-to-back games. There's also one sports writer that's done that.
Yeah.
It's Matt Porras, to the far left, Lubbock High quarterback in 99 and 2000, or am I aging you?
98-99.
98-99. Won the Silver Spurs game back-to-back. James Morton will not like it if we're talking about this. Two incredible games, and Matt was something to watch back then. I've been wanting to introduce you to at some point. You know his dad.
Very well.
The legendary Joe Porras.
Absolutely.
Matt, I told your dad the other day that he's partially the reason why I put on so much weight when I got here, because I don't know if you do this.
Food.
He used to bring me a pizza every night at Lowry Field.
Now the question is, did you get the peanut butter surprises?
I'm sure I did. Greg Sherwood made sure we were taken care of, but your dad was like my personal pizza man, and that was 2 or 3 nights a week. So the reason Matt is here, the reason Juan's here every week, he doesn't get much choice, he's stuck with me, is it's Lubbock High Monterey. It's Silver Spurs week for the first time in 3 years. The series stopped for the first time since, I think Mike Meeks told me, 1955.
Yes, sir.
Was the first time they met. So it's a little bit different because Lubbock High dipped down to Division II. We're going to talk about last week very briefly.
Thank you.
Tascosa beat Lubbock High 56-7. Game got to go away pretty quickly. Rebels scored a couple quick touchdowns. We're just going to kind of leave it at that, because I know that was not your favorite subject last week. I'm going to guess that you guys turned the page really quickly with your guys this week, and the fact that it's Monterey helps do that.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, let me start by introducing this is Coach Hank Semler. He's my associate head football coach, and really I call him the Wizard of Oz, because I live in this land, and there's a guy that's doing a lot behind the scenes that's constantly making sure that everything goes as smooth as it possibly can there at Lubbock High for our football program, along with our coordinators. And it's really myself, the Hank, and then the coordinators, and he's really the liaison between myself and those two guys, and does really a fantastic job, not just for myself, but for the kids, and also does a fantastic job for our campus, and is very involved both with our athletic and academic programs there. But definitely we were very, very quickly able to turn the page the very next day, And a little frustrating at times when we watch film, because if you watch it the way we watched it with that intention, we were so many times in position to make plays, we just didn't make them. And so at least we felt good enough to say that we got something out of the film, that we were able to be in positions. We just didn't make the plays when we needed to make them. And hats off to Tascosa. They did a fantastic job of running that style of offense.
I think I told you this afterwards. I wanted to talk to Charlie Hogan because I knew he would be honest, because that's just the kind of kid he is. And he basically said what you just said. He said we were coached to do what we needed to do, and we as players didn't handle what we needed to do. So you like it when one of your senior guys owns that.
Yes, sir. It's that's something that we've really emphasized since we've gotten to Lubbock High, is take ownership of your actions. Hold yourself accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable before you can hold your teammates accountable and anybody else. And so, Charlie really exemplifies, he's a great example of our culture change that we've been working so hard to get done.
And that's a good segue to Matt, because before we come up on it here in a break, I don't remember back then, Matt, how many years it had been since you guys had beaten Monterey. It had been a little while. My friend Joe Landine could probably
I'm pretty
fill
sure
that
he
in.
could. The last person I know is the city manager for El Paso. Do you remember him?
Gonzalez.
Yes, Tommy Gonzalez.
Tommy Gonzalez.
I'm pretty sure he was the last person before me that actually had won them. I think, I'm not mistaken. He also did it 2 times in a row.
Okay,
So he was also brought into the.
But you're a unicorn.
ring in there. Yeah.
You're a unicorn. It hasn't happened very much.
Oh yeah.
But those 2 games, I thought, typified what Joe Loudermilk brought to Lubbock High all those years. It's a big game for Lubbock High. Judd Thresh was just in here. He said that Monterey's focused on some other things, and it's new to him. It's new to you, Juan, but you love the Lubbock High history. This guy's a big piece of that history. Why is it? Why back then, and if they start to cut me off, I'm going to give you a signal. Back then, what do you remember about how emotional, how enthusiastic the school was?
It is probably the biggest game of the year. I mean, every game was big, but between the rivalry we had between us and them, honestly, it's what we looked at every year. I think the practices got more intense during this week, and you could definitely tell we were ready for each and every game that we did play.
So I'm trying to remember this right. In this, with time, details gets a little exaggerated. One of your friends posted this. One of those games, Lubbock High had the game won. All they had to do is Joe Loudermilk told the punter to take the snap, run around, run out the back. The punter did everything right, except he stepped out at the 2.
That play, they wanted me to get the ball and run straight to the back of the end zone, run around and fall down. It's like, I'm slow. Why give it to him? And sure enough, we gave it to our running back, the fastest guy on the team. And all he had to do was get into the end zone and fall down, but he fell down right at the one.
He did everything right.
Everything right except for getting in the end zone.
But Monterey had, I don't remember how much time they had left.
1 second.
So they got a play or 2 because I think there might have even been a penalty. They had a play or 2, and the Lubbock High defense held. So that's kind of a little bit of that history. We're coming up on a break, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that and then just this year's game and what you guys need to do to come out and get back where you want to be. This is the Westerner Fan Zone. Westerners play Monterey at 7 p.m. Friday at Lowry Field. That will be on 93.7 The Eagle. That's the Monterey broadcast. The Lubbock High broadcast with Rob Bro and his dad, Mark Bro, will be on a different network, but you will be able to listen to both sides of the broadcast. This is Randy Rosetta with 100.7 The Score. We'll be back on the Westerner Fan Zone after this break.
Breaking down Lubbock High sports. This is the Westerner Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back to the Westerner Fan Zone on a Tuesday night. Before we jump back in and talk Silver Spurs, I'm going to run through the list of games on Ray Martin Networks this weekend. Friday night, Friendship is at home against Midland High in their district opener. That's on Double T 97.3 FM. Lubbock Cooper is at home against Abilene Cooper right here on 100.7 The Score. Coronado goes down to Abilene High, 96.9 The Bull. Lubbock High and Monterey, 93.7 The Eagle from Lowry Field. Liberty has their district opener against Perryton, first ever district game for Liberty, 93.1 Yes FM. Idalou is off this week, so they will not be on the air on Sunday 97.7. I don't know if they're carrying a different game then or if they're going baseball playoffs or what they're doing, but there will be plenty of football in Lubbock because also Estacado's at home Thursday night in their district opener against Levelland. Trinity Christian opens their district against Fort Worth Christian out at Warwick Memorial Field. Lubbock Christian opens their district against Lake Country over at Mass Rider Capitol Field. Matt, you've lived here longer than any of us. Do you remember there ever being 6 games on a Friday night in Lubbock?
Honestly, I don't like this. As many area teams that we've had in this area, there hasn't been this many.
No, that's a crazy Friday night, and you guys get to have one of the marquee games, Juan. It's a big game for a lot of folks for a lot of reasons. Talk about why it's a big game for you guys, because you're coming off a loss, but you're 3-2. It's just your second district game. You guys have a lot of stuff you can still accomplish.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, whether win or lose, we always talk, and Coach and I always preach about just getting better, week in and week out, and improving on the things that we want to improve on. Our staff, with Coach, and we do I think they do a fantastic job of reevaluating themselves week to week, self-scouting themselves week to week, finding out what we can do, what we need to improve on. Going into this game, I think it's just one of those things that we've got to obviously still narrow down some things. We're very happy that we narrowed down our penalties from last week. So that was a plus for us, and I was excited for the kids because that's something that we've been preaching about since the season began. So a lot of those little mental mistakes didn't happen. Obviously, we only had like 37 snaps on offense, so we would like to go back and to reestablish the run and get ourselves in a situation where we control that clock. We weren't able to do that, and that obviously gave a high-powered offense like Tascosa's, who's definitely difficult to defend, but difficult to defend throughout 4 quarters when they have the ball the majority of the time. So that's something that I know that our offense worked really hard to reestablish themselves as a team that can run the ball. And I thought they had a great practice the last couple of days. But more importantly, it's a second district game, and we've got an opportunity to go out there and play a really good Monterey team. Who I said earlier to someone else, they're just a few points away from really being an undefeated team. So they're definitely well coached. They do a great job, and it's going to be exciting for us. And to know that the kids know each other, And coach, I know him, I know them, and it's going to be it's like kind of like sandlot football. It's going to be one of those type of atmospheres. They're going to get after each other. Like Coach Thrash and myself talk. The biggest hope is that we come out, healthy, and that everyone comes out safe, and that we give their fans for both sides a great game. And one of us has to lose, unfortunately. So either way, we're both secretly always rooting for one another. But at the same time, we understand what's at stake here for both of us. Him going on after a big win against Coronado, and obviously trying to go 2-0, and we're trying to go 1-1.
Matt, I want you to follow up on that. He's got his own. You guys can share the game show mic here. What was that like? What do you remember about the fact that those Monterey guys are guys you probably went to middle school with? You probably played. I don't know if they called it Tiger League football here, but there's not a whole lot of. There's a lot of familiarity when you get out there on the field against Monterey.
There really is. I mean, not even just football itself, but baseball. Every sport we played, I have a bunch of friends that played that we all grew up.
You had older brothers that went to Monterey, correct?
No, I have a bunch of I call them brothers, but we grew up playing Little League through pretty much right about high school, and we all split up.
I'm getting you mixed up with the Gonzaleses.
Yes.
They have brothers at both.
They definitely have the older ones over there. But just growing up and going our different ways, and most of them going to Monterey, myself going to Lubbock High, that all the trash talking kept going, and it's just something that, we're friends. This is stuff that should be happening, just between each other.
And thanks to social media, I can say this for Matt, that the trash talk persists 20 years later and 25 years later. So we're coming up on the 25th anniversary you guys beating them. And I'm friends with Matt on Facebook, and there's some friends that still talk about it. That's what sports are all about. That's what rivalries are all about. We'll come back with one more segment of the Westerner Fan Zone. We'll talk about this year's matchup and just a little bit of the history that goes back a long time between these two schools. I'm Randy Rosetta. This is 100.7 The Score. We'll be back with one more segment of the Westerner Fan Zone.
Breaking down Lubbock High sports. This is the Westerner Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
My senior year, we're 5.
Welcome into the final segment of the Westerner Fan Zone on Tuesday night. I have former Lubbock High quarterback Matt Porras to my far left if you're watching on TV. Lubbock High coach Juan Rodriguez, and what do you call you? Jack of all trades.
The master of none.
There we go.
Associate head coach.
How do you introduce him, Juan?
He's the Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, Hank Semler. That's it. I'm from Kansas, so I can appreciate the Wizard of Oz reference.
From Kansas.
So I'm looking at the series. You got the first game was 1956. I know Juan and I weren't even a twinkle in our dads. I'm okay. So none of us up here were even alive. I'm going to guess that back then Monterey was kind of out on the prairie in Lubbock. And I don't know, somebody listening or watching can tell me. I'm assuming that's the oldest rivalry in Lubbock. I don't know if Dunbar and Lubbock High played back then or segregation prevented that from happening. Monterey's the second oldest public high school. I know that. Mm-hmm. So we're talking 70, coming up on 70 years that they've played. The 2 years they didn't, were these last 2 years. We went through this. Now, you were giving me a little factoid there. Do you know the answer to your?
I do not.
Okay.
But I think he answered it, right?
Well, did you say we won 4? We won 4, and would be when I played my senior year.
Yeah, because
We were 6-4 my junior year, and then 5-5 my senior year.
Yeah,
So
there were some seasons there where,
There were some
in fact,
really good seasons there for Lubbock High.
this is one that I'm going to make Matt cringe a little bit. One of those years, you went into the last game at Amarillo High, you just needed a win, and I believe you had the lead at Dick Bivens Stadium on a Saturday afternoon.
Shane Silverman, that's all I gotta say.
And Amarillo High got him
big
right at
boy.
the end. So,
Didn't give me a chance to throw the ball at all.
well, Juan, let's talk about this year's game, this year's team. You had to lick some wounds earlier this week. Tough loss. Monterey's other direction. They're flying high. What are some things you guys have to do well against them? And either one of you can jump on that. What are some things you guys have to do to have a chance to beat Monterey in the Silver Spurs game?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have a good ball control with our offense. You know, we're going to the less their high-powered offense is on the field, the better off we are. Defensively, we got to be able to keep our composure, just execute the scheme that we've got. We feel like we've had a really good. We've got a really good scheme, good opportunities, and if our guys had a great practice this morning, so you can kind of tell as a coach when players are buying into what you're doing, and our defense is really bought in. Everybody's really bought in. So
that was something that Charlie said afterwards. He said that it's got to start Monday. I had a sense that he was going to have something to say to his teammates.
You know, I think for Charlie, I think it's just being that leader, being one of our captains, but more importantly, to have a conversation with him and him acknowledge what he felt was wrong and what happened to us that night. But more importantly, for him to finish his statement by saying there's going to be a change come Monday. And I think that's something that we've been looking for the last couple of years with some of our kids. And we've had great leaders throughout the last couple of years. But the initiative for him to say it's going to be a change Monday. And, we hold our kids to extremely high standard, and they know that, there's not publicly, but there are some kids that didn't play last week for us. And I told them, we're not going to get away from what I got here to do, which is to teach players to be better athletes on the field, but more importantly, be better young men and to be held accountable. And there's reasons why that happened. And that's nothing that we did. It's what we call they self-inflicted those. Yep. So we're going to continue to hold them to that standard. We're going to continue to hold them to the expectations, because when we talk about culture, we basically have finished by always saying, when does our culture change? Is when those expectations that we've embraced on them have become really the standards. When we raise those expectations to become the standards, then Lubbock High will come back and will rise again. And that's what we're looking for. And we're very privileged to be a part of it, because we do have some magnificent kids. We have a magnificent student body. We have a magnificent, administration. We've got everything that we need. And I've said this one, and I probably haven't said it publicly, but I know that it's there. It's a gold mine there. And there's just great, great young people there at that school. And I love it. We love it. And that's why we enjoy working with our kids day in and day out.
So this guy's going to get them fired up Friday, Matt.
I can definitely tell, especially, haven't been keeping up lately, but all I hear is, hey, they won 3 in a row, and they come tell me. Like, they know I'd like to hear that stuff, and it's awesome.
You ready to put the shoulder pads and helmet back on?
I wouldn't go that far, but
we're going to dress him out, man.
I bet he could still fling it.
I bet you.
I probably could.
He could throw the ball a little bit. I will have to check on this, but Joe Loudermilk, like I said, legend grows. He'll give me some numbers, though. That's going to wrap us up on the Westerner Fan Zone. 7 p.m. Friday, Battle for the Silver Spurs at Lowry Field. I'm Randy Rosetta. That's 100.7 The Score to the High School Fan Zone.